Our next speaker is Mr. John Quinley. He's the director of Fortify Rights and has made significant contributions to advocating for the human rights of refugees, particularly the Rohingya community. Over to you.
Thank you for having me today. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. I really want to thank my colleagues at Rohingya Human Rights Initiative for putting together the event. It's an honor to speak on the panel with Rohingya colleagues and other allies. This event is to commemorate August 25th. I was in Cox's Bazar this year for the anniversary, and 7 years ago, the genocidal attacks happened against the Rohingya people. My organization that I work with, Fortify Rights, stands in solidarity with the victims and survivors of the attacks, and we are committed to seeing accountability for the atrocities, and will continue to work until that happens. As many of my other colleagues on the panel already talked about, Rohingya continue to face ongoing violence by the Myanmar military and also now by the Arakan Army. Today, Fortify Rights published an investigation on how the AA attacked civilians via drone and mortar fire along the Naf River as they tried to flee. This attack and others should be investigated by the International Criminal Court, which has an ongoing investigation into the crime against humanity of deportation related to the Rohingya. And they can investigate other perpetrators for those similar crimes. In Rakhine State in Myanmar, it's an ongoing armed conflict. There are a diverse group of armed actors. Nesa Win on the panel earlier today mentioned some of the armed actors, including the Arakan Army, the Myanmar junta, and a number of Rohingya militant groups. There's an ongoing investigative mechanisms and accountability mechanisms, including the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, known as the IIMM. They're mandated to collect and preserve evidence, and they're in the process of collecting and preserving evidence related to the Arakan Army crimes and Myanmar military crimes. As I mentioned before, the International Criminal Court is investigating crimes as well and collecting evidence. This should make perpetrators really worried about future prosecutions. Fortify Rights is actively engaging these different mechanisms and sharing evidence with them, and we plan to share our full investigation today with those different mechanisms. As we documented the violence in Rakhine State, large numbers of Rohingya refugees have fled to Bangladesh. Despite this, my colleagues and I at Fortify Rights are hearing credible reports of how the Bangladesh border guard forces are pushing refugees back to Myanmar. Here in Bangladesh, where I am today, there's a new interim government. The new interim government, led by Muhammad Yunus, should reassess its policies towards Rohingya refugees. First and foremost, it should halt the pushbacks, and it should end pushback policies at the border. My colleagues and I at Fortify Rights have been talking to refugees crossing the border in recent weeks, and they need safety and security. Authorities in Bangladesh should also work with UNHCR and register newly arrived refugees. There's been a full halt on new registration and a block on registrations for many months now, and that makes new refugees arriving to Bangladesh, it makes them not able to access services and humanitarian support. So this makes the camps a very difficult environment. Furthermore, Muhammad Yunus should work with interim government to allow refugees legal status, access to education, work, and freedom of movement in the country. Under the former government led by Sheikh Hasina, she was very restrictive of Rohingya refugee rights. Under her government, Rohingya were basically restricted in every aspect of their lives. And the new interim government has an opportunity to be able to fix the problems that it created for refugees that came here before. And finally, in the middle term, Bangladesh interim government should work with UN and other governments to allow more third country resettlement options for refugees that are under extreme risk, including Rohingya human rights defenders. Lastly, I just want to say Fortify Rights works with Rohingya civil society members. We do some protection support for those at risk, and we continue to train and come alongside Rohingya to document violations themselves. I know we're already super over time, so I'm going to leave it here and I'll wait for question and answers and happy to join the conversation more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We do hope that, yeah, I definitely agree with you that we do hope that the new government brings in more favorable policies for the Rohingyas.